Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to view Kristy from 2014. So, we have a girl named Justine who is to seemingly be alone on Thanksgiving break, but come to find out, there is to be security guards, there is to be maintenance men, there is to also, at some point, be other people that Justine interacts with during this film, but like Justine is alone on campus during Thanksgiving Day break because Justine is to need to work and is to also uh like when everybody is giving her all the options to get out of here, Justine stays instead, which she goes on to regret that decision, I'm sure, by the time that this movie ends up wrapping up. So we go on to, of course, have Justine, who is to make her way to a convenience store at some point in this movie, and she meets up with a hooded girl named Violet, who's wearing this red hoodie. And so Justine starts a conversation with this unusual girl who is to say that Justine is really pretty and this and that. So Justine goes off, and after talking to this clerk about like just buying this girl like sunglasses because she's going on and on about some discount, Justine just goes back to campus thinking that nothing was going to come of that conversation. Justine goes back on campus to then realize security guards are getting killed like crazy. So then Justine is to need to go on and realize that there are hooded individuals that are coming after her. Some of them wearing masks that are to have duct tape on them. Some of them are to have aluminum foil on them. And then some of them are to, of course, be a girl named Violet, who we've already seen in the early part of this movie. Oddly enough, we have all these hooded characters that have these phone jamming technologies and all these weird goofy things to where we're immediately thinking like, how could they afford this kind of crap? How is it they have this technology? But it's conveniently just written into the film to then justify that no one's going to be easily able to just phone the police and have them wait on the police and then them be saved. A lot of this movie is honestly Justine just running around trying to avoid these people. That seems to be mostly what the film is about when we get to that point. Because a lot of the early part of this movie is Justine trying to deny a bunch of people for having them just kind of take her with them on Thanksgiving. And Justine's like, no, 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 no. I'm just going to stay here. I'll be fine all by myself. And so we go on to, of course, have Justine realize that she can continue to run and run and run all over this campus, but at some point she's going to have to face her attackers. She's going to have to kill her attackers because, of course, it's either her or them. And so we have Justine that forcibly just needs to, instead of just getting into a car, driving like mad out of this campus to find the most convenient phone, and escaping all of this, just driving like crazy out of here, Justine instead faces her attackers one by one individually and starts to kill them all off, one by one, to the point of her being left with the one character that, of course, is to not have a mask. Because, of course, you have to save her for last, right? So, this movie, for everything that it goes on and does, like I have seen worse movies lately. But also, I would state that this movie is oakley dokley. It's okay. I would say that it's probably more interesting than okay. But like I'm like, come on, let's get to the more interesting part, because there's just a lot of just dead time in this movie for it being as short as it is. as short as it is. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into spoilers. Here's one thing also that I want to gripe about. So, we have three hoodied individuals that, and there's three of them. I had to go on and get a recapping by the end of the film, just like, oh yeah, I guess there were three, because I couldn't tell the difference. Most of this movie is so dark that I can't tell the difference between a blue hooded guy, a black hooded guy, and a gray hooded guy. I can't tell the difference. The only thing that I can tell the difference of is the masks of which that they are to wear. I'd be like, oh, okay, that must be black hoodied guy, because that guy is to be wearing duct tape over his face. But I think that you then have two other characters that have aluminum foil over their faces, so I'm like, how can you tell the difference between them? Because I couldn't. I guess, obviously, I could only tell the difference between the blue and gray hooded people, because one ends up getting dead earlier than the other, and then the other gets unmasked. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can figure out who that is via the cast. But again, that was to be just very confusing to me, because I couldn't tell the difference between a color. So, with that said, because you could probably say it's like, well, some of them have individual weapons. Again, with it being so dark in this film, how could I tell? But so, let's go on and let's go into spoilers. Let's go out of our way to say that it's about that time, yet again, to of course double fly this bad boy up, because it is spoiler time, it's about that time you spoil this movie. So, we have Justine. And so, at the very beginning of this movie, before we get to Justine, in the very beginning of this movie, we have this girl who's laying in this grassy field with a K carved into her face. And we have all these hoodied individuals taking pictures of her, showcasing that the hunt is now over. As if we, of course, had all these people already kill this girl off. And so, come to find out, these people are putting up some blog or vlog or whatever, showcasing how they're going after all these girls, and they're just naming all them Christine, because supposedly there is a significant reasoning for calling these girls this name, that it has something to do with a religious thing for whatever goofy reason. So, cue us Justine. Justine, of course, is to have this boyfriend, and it seems that Justine and both Aaron are getting all their lovin' as they possibly can, as they're both on this bed, like having Justine reading this book for one of her classes. And so Aaron is going on and talking about how he's going away for the holiday, and Justine is consistently telling Aaron, it's like, well, hey, how about you stay? Like, we could probably get busy a little bit more, if you know what I mean. So, but Aaron at some point is to tell Justine, it's like, well, no, like, you don't know my parents, like, so on and so forth. So, Aaron is even to ask Justine, it's like, well, how about you come with me to Thanksgiving? And Justine's like, no. So, Justine is to need to go on and do this dishwashing job and stick it out and stay here on campus, but also she just has nowhere to go for Thanksgiving. I think she also goes on and calls her family and is to just kind of ask them, like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like, da-da-da-da-da, to kind of keep herself busy. So, Justine ends up going on to think that she will not be alone for Thanksgiving, as she has this friend Nicole, who is also supposedly going to be with her. We have Justine then ends up kind of sharing laundry duty with Nicole, as Justine is to kind of bump in Nicole, and Nicole's like, hey, like, do you think you can go on and do a little bit more laundry? And kind of Nicole kind of hands Justine off her laundry for her to do. So Justine goes on to take the laundry and starts to do it, and so on and so forth. And so Justine is to kind of keep herself busy. She goes in the pool and consistently takes laps every day. Justine goes on to uh, like take this baseball bat and this ball and just smack it down this hallway because she knows nobody's down there. And Justine goes on to just keep herself busy, go to the library, just kind of do stuff to keep herself busy. Justine consistently talks to the security guard, and like the security guard is like, "Hey, I got you back." Yeah, yeah. So Justine finally goes on after all the laps that she is to swim, and after all the activities she is to try to keep her busy with. We have Justine that ends up talking to Nicole, and it seems that Nicole is to find herself needing to go home for Thanksgiving because she has this family emergency. Nicole is to state that she's going to go on and like fly off to see her family, and Nicole even gives Justine like, well, hey, like I'll buy you another ticket and you can come with me. And Justine's like, no, because even when Aaron is to tell Justine like, well, hey, how about we go like together and you come with me, Justine is to tell Aaron no. And so Aaron is to take this tape recorder and record the words "I love you," and wants Justine to state it also, so that way they can kind of play it over and over and over again. So we we have Justine that is even more by herself than she was. So Justine is mentioning to all the people coming up with lies, stating like, "Oh yeah, no, me and Nicole are gonna go on, and we're gonna have like chicken pot pie and all this other stuff." We have this one like foreign exchange student girl or some girl with an accent that is telling uh, Justine like have a good happy Thanksgiving and Guten Tag and all this other stuff. So Justine goes on to make up this lie that her and Nicole are going to be together, but when Justine ends up talking to Aaron, she lets it slip that that actually Nicole won't be there. And Aaron's like, "Well, wait a minute, like I thought you and Nicole were going to be together," and Justine's like, "Well, no." And so Aaron's like, "Well, like I don't want you to be alone on Thanksgiving. Like I'm gonna just drive up there. It's gonna take 2 hours." And Justine's like, "No, like don't do it." So Justine instead goes to this convenience store, and that's when things start to drastically change in this film. So Justine goes to this convenience store and is to go on and buy a couple things. We have this clerk who's ringing her up. And we, of course, have Violet with this red hoodie, who is a state that's like, "Oh, like, you look really beautiful, and you look this, and you look that." So, Justine goes on and is to hear both the clerk and this Violet girl. And she, of course, is to be, like, wearing these sunglasses. Violet asks for a discount from this clerk for these sunglasses, and so they go on and on about this discount. And Justine's like, "How about I just buy the sunglasses? Like this whole thing will be over." And so Violet looks at Justine. It's like, "Wow, you have everything going for you now, don't you?" So we have Justine who makes it out of the convenience store as we go on to find out at some point in this movie that they're recording this girl making her way out of this convenience store, making her way to the campus. So we have Justine who is consistently uh, with this security guard to the point where when Justine is to leave campus, she ends up telling this other security guard, who is actually Dave, that like she's only going to be out for 20 minutes and then she'll come back. So Justine then is to talk with the security guard called Wayne, and because Justine goes on and gives him like some pop and some stuff because she's really nice. So Justine gets stuff for Wayne, and they both talk about how like there seems to be uh, some kind of bored locals that just have nothing to better to do but to kind of to give crap to other people. So Justine goes on and just goes back to her room, and this, of course, where Justine is to see on her laptop that she has this unusual video that she's trying to get out of, and then all of a sudden it says that her internet is unavailable. So Justine is to realize that Violet is within her room, and so Violet ends up going on to say how pretty Justine is, and then is to also look at this photo with Justine and her boyfriend and be like, wow, your boyfriend is really handsome. Man, you have everything going for you. So, everything is working out perfectly for you now, isn't it, Kristy? So we have Justine who tells this girl, it's like, well, Kristy isn't my name. My name is Justine. You're gonna be Kristy for the rest of the night, just so you know. So we have Justine trying to find Wayne, the security guard, and come to find out Wayne is outside just kind of looking around, kind of making the rounds because he has some suspicious behavior. So by the time that Justine is kind of banging on this window, trying to get Wayne to come back in, to where finally Justine is running to this glass window where Wayne is going to kind of walk in, we have one of the hooded individuals that I think this is Duct Tape Guy, and I think this is Black Hoodie Guy, but I'm probably going to go on and say Duct Tape Guy, Duct Tape Face, or Aluminum Foil Face, because that seems to be the easier way to decipher for me between the colors of the hoodies. Because they end up calling them Blue Hoodie, Black Hoodie, and Gray Hoodie, and I'm like, I can't tell the difference between the three of these people because it's so freaking dark through most of this film. So Duct Tape Guy goes on to kill Wayne, and so now here's where things start to pop off. We, of course, have Aluminum Foil Guy, who I think is actually the blue hooded guy, that is to go on with Violet and kind of make their way down this hallway. So we have Justine, who goes on to run around for a number of different places. She's kind of going into a number of these locations, and so Justine at one point is to go into the cooking area, the place where they cook things. And so Justine is kind of making her way around there and having all these guys follow her in this location. Justine goes on to make certain sounds so that way these guys are going into an opposite direction where she actually is at, so Justine can go on and hide from them. We even have at one point where one of the aluminum foil guys ends up kind of going haha, and she's not underneath there. So Justine goes on to bang on some of the pots and then runs off, and so the guys run to where she was, and then they're kind of looking for where she is for her to be able to get out of here. So Justine continues to try and find someone, anybody, who could possibly even have a phone at this point. So Justine goes on to try and find a guy who is actually the maintenance man, which Justine ends up spotting when she is on this football field, just kind of making this phone call, and the maintenance guy is just kind of walking his dog, and he's like, oh, hey, Justine, because everybody knows who everybody is in this campus. So, and while Justine is kind of on this phone call, it's like, well, hey, who are you talking to? And Justine's like, oh, I was just talking to the maintenance man. So Justine ends up going on, knocking on the door of the maintenance man, desperately hoping that he's going to open this door. And so, of course, this ends up being Scott, who Justine is frantically trying to tell Scott what is going on here. And Scott is like, whoa, 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 whoa. You really need to slow down as much as possible because I'm very high. So please, like, kind of like slow it down because I don't know what you're talking about. So Justine is to try to re-explain to Scott, and Scott's like, okay, all right. So Justine ends up spotting that Scott has this phone, and she is to try to call with this phone, but the phone is dead. So Justine is kind of frantically asking Scott, it's like, do you have a cell phone? Where's your cell phone? And Scott, instead of getting his cell phone, ends up getting his shotgun instead. He's like, well, like, it'll take too long for the police to get here, so I'm just gonna amp up my shotgun. Which, the funny thing of it is, we don't have Justine who grabs the shotgun, shoots all these guys, kills them off that way. Heaven forbid we do that in this film. The movie would have been a lot shorter. So instead, we have at one point where Scott ends up going outside to realize that these guys are going to go on and come to his place soon. And so Scott is making a stand and is to have a shotgun out. And so we have Scott who shoots this shotgun into the air, telling everybody, hey, I got a shotgun now, so you guys should leave. And so we have these guys who, around Scott, like, everything is just very foggy, bizarrely. And so what happens is that Scott's dog ends up just going outside, and we have the hooded individuals that we kind of hear these yelping and stuff like that. We have to naturally assume the dog is dead because the hooded guys go on and toss the collar and smack it right onto Scott's chest, and we realize the dog is dead. Here's the thing. With all these people having these obvious weapons where they can toss and hit Scott, why isn't any number of these people going on and just tossing these weapons, hitting Scott, and Scott's dead? Problem resolved. But no, like, I guess they figured it's like, well, we can't really see all that well, and we don't want to, like, take the chance of losing our weapon, and so on and so forth. So instead, we have Scott, who ends up locking his door, coming back to Justine and stating that, okay, his dog is now dead. So we just get to a point within this movie where Scott and Justine end up separating between one another, and when Justine finds Scott again, Scott is being choked by these hooded guys, and he ends up getting killed. So then Justine is running away, realizing that she now has time to just kind of get away from these guys. And plus also, considering they might have a shotgun, yeah, Justine is just trying to create distance away from these people. So Justine ends up finding Scott's cell phone. And so when Justine goes on to call the police, we end up having a female answer. And so Justine is stating that she's having a number of attackers that are coming after her. She's by the campus, and she's going to run to the library. Come to find out, we have Violet over the phone who is to answer this call because they had jammed her phone. But not only that, we of course have Violet state to Justine that anybody could have easily gotten the maintenance man's number because the maintenance man has his phone number, like, all over the place, all over the campus. So it was easy for them to kind of figure out a way to sabotage this guy's phone. So Justine goes into the library and is just consistently looking through all these stacks of books, trying to hide away from all these hooded individuals. So we have Justine that is trying to figure out a way to hide in this library. So she goes all the way to the roof of this library, and then we finally have all the hooded people that go on to make it to the roof also. Justine then is to be like, well, okay, I'm just going to jump off this roof then. Justine jumps off the roof and is to go on and just kind of smack against some parts of a tree. And, like, she doesn't hit any of the branches. She just kind of hits, like, some of the like the green part of the tree, like the leaves and stuff. She just kind of smacks into those. She falls and she ends up hurting her leg. I don't know exactly what she ends up doing. She probably easily break a bone, right? So, or like tear or something. So Justine is now limping her way. And so now we go on to see that Aaron is driving back on campus and to see the one security guard is no longer there. Aaron is thinking it's like, well, like maybe this guy like left early, maybe he's like left early because it's a holiday, who knows. So Aaron just continues on to go into the campus, and Aaron all of a sudden spots a girl running into this kind of darkened area. So Aaron runs after her. We go on to have Justine, who spots Aaron and is running after him also to convince him to, like, hey, we need to get out of here. And so, but before Aaron sees Justine, he ends up seeing this other girl, and so Aaron keeps calling for Justine, and this girl does not turn around. Come to find out, the girl is Violet. And so by the time that Aaron turns to Justine and is now just like, well, hey, like, I guess this is Justine. What is Justine talking about? All of a sudden, we then have Aaron, who ends up getting killed. Because, of course, Aaron ends up getting stabbed and killed and so on and so forth. He ends up getting killed here. So we have Justine that just gets into Aaron's car and it's just driving off. So we have one of the aluminum foiled hoodied characters, which I'm assuming is actually the gray hoodied guy. Someone can correct me, that's perfectly fine, because there's a lot of going on in this film. Justine, of course, is to ram right into this guy, destroying this car, and I'm like, God, is that so stupid? Because immediately, if I was Justine, I would take this car and just be like, I'm peacing out. Later, A-Town. I'm getting the F out of here. I don't care how. I get that this is probably a gated campus, and more than likely what might happen is that Justine may try to get out of here, and it may not work. But either way, the attempt would be attempted. So that's my thought process. So, but instead, Justine rams this car into one of the gray hooded guys, and she then kills one of them. But there are, besides Violet, there are two more left. So now Justine goes on to take this backpack with her. That's, of course, Aaron's, to hope that there is a cell phone somewhere in there. And of course, there really isn't. There's just the tape recording of Aaron stating that he loves Justine, and Justine cries about that. So we have Justine that makes her way into the pool area, because that seems to be the only place that's nearby. So we have the duct-taped guy, the black-hooded guy, that makes his way into this pool area, who's kind of looking around for wherever Justine could be. So Justine, of course, goes on and dunks herself into the pool without the black-hooded guy hearing. So Justine is kind of hiding around the pool. She's also going to dunk herself into the pool until this guy kind of makes his rounds. So what ends up happening is Justine goes on to, once this guy kind of makes his way from this other direction, Justine then gets out of the pool, is kind of waiting kind of behind this spot until this black hooded guy comes back. Justine kind of dunks this thing into the water to make this guy assume that it's like, okay, somebody's in the water. And when this black hooded guy is kind of looking in the pool, we then have Justine that kind of springs out and is to take this guy's weapon, choke him with it, and dunk him into the water to where he drowns because, of course, he wasn't able to take a breath. And so this guy dies. The black hooded guy dies. So Justine ends up knocking off another one of these hooded guys. So we then go on to continue, have Justine making her way through the campus to where she goes on and makes it to a part of the campus where there are all these showers. So we had Justine that takes the black hooded guy's bat and is to uh, kind of makeshift this into this like spiked bat. And I was like, man, this is pretty cool. So Justine goes on and makeshifts this bat to have all these like these screwed spikes that go into this bat. So we have her just kind of waiting and waiting. And so Justine is to record her voice on this tape recorder and puts it into this other bathroom shower. And so Justine is kind of waiting for this guy to kind of make it through all these showers and just kind of rip them open and just like, okay, like I know exactly where she is, like I can hear where she is. So he opens up this shower curtain. Justine comes flying out, smacks this guy in the head with this bat, and I'm like, yeah. And then the guy goes down. So we then go on to have Justine, who takes the mask off of this guy. And I'm not quite sure if this guy at some point looks familiar or not to her, but I think there's this one moment where she was like, but like I'm thinking more than likely I would probably want to go back through this movie just to see if there was at any point where this guy was somewhere in the part of the movie earlier, but I just didn't notice it. So they didn't do like a flashback scene either where it's like, oh yeah, like this guy was in the background here. Like that's obviously what they would do any other film, but I guess not this movie. So we have Justine that only has Violet left. So it's like, all right, like she's going to have to go after the girl. And so Violet is sending the blue hooded guy, he's sending him a tweet. she's sending him a tweet just saying like, hey, yeah, like killing is great, LOL. No. Having a rough time finding Justine, really want to kill this girl, LOL. No, we have Violet who's sending blue hooded guy a text and is like, well, hey, did you kill Kristy? And we have Justine who ends up just typing the word Y, and then Violet's like, okay, well, I'll get the car ready, and Justine's like, on my way. So Justine ends up disguising herself as the blue hooded guy, and she goes out there. And so Justine, of course, was to be in this science class where this professor was to go on and do this experiment where he ends up showing if you kind of toss these two chemicals together that you'll end up having this fire getting started. And I'm like, okay, that's a unusual thing to kind of show your class, but hey, like it's one cool thing to kind of show as a science thing. So Justine then goes on and is to take that same chemical concoction and use this against Violet. So Justine ends up going on and as the blue hooded guy goes to the car that Violet's at and tosses his chemicals all over Violet, and then Violet gets out of the car, and so we have Violet like, well, hey, like, what are you doing? And so Justine ends up pouring the other chemical concoction all over Violet to douse her on fire. So come to find out, Justine is to find that there had been a number of cases of Kristy's all getting killed through this thing called the fold or the folder or something. And because, of course, Violet is to mention to Justine, it's like, well, hey, add it to the fold. And like there's this whole vlog or blog thing that shows all these girls getting killed. So Justine ends up taking a picture of all of the hooded guys and now saying that the hunt is over and that they're all dead. So now I'm assuming we have Justine who goes on by foot and finding the most convenient place where she can call for police. And I'm assessing that because that's not what really happens. And so Justine goes on and is to have us find out that for this story, like, this is a thing that has kind of been happening everywhere. That these hoodie guys are all going on to find these Kristy girls, or girls that they name Kristy, and killing them all off. And so there seems to be this whole franchise that has been set up throughout the whole entire world. And so I'm like, you know what? Like, this would be, like, really cool if, yeah, like, they continue this franchise, but here's the thing. Or continue to do sequels with this. But in all honesty, I feel like the whole duct tape and the whole, like, aluminum foil masks, like, I honestly wish there was, like, a little bit more of, like, a stranger kind of thing going on, where you would go on and have all these, like, real, like, masks, and have them all, like, have, like, sacks over their head, or, like, something kind of more like Strangers, because I think, like, that was kind of a very interesting setup. And with, like, duct tapes and aluminum foil, and, like, that does kind of seem, like, on the cheap end. But, like, I guess that also is, like, the easiest mask to make. So, and also, like, it seems very unique, I would assume, because I've rarely seen a number of slashers or whatever that have that kind of same approach, but still. I would have liked there to have been, like, some other kind of, a different kind of thing going on here. Like, a lot of people can easily make all kinds of, like, homemade masks, or just go on to figure out a customizable way to do a mask. It's so easy nowadays. But it is what it is. So with that said, I think I'm just going to go on and get out of here. 37 minutes to talk about this whole entire movie. That's kind of surprising. But we also had a recap by the end of this movie showcasing how everyone was to die, and how they're all left to have been killed. So yeah, so we end up seeing the one guy who ends up getting run over. We end up seeing the one guy still in the pool. We had the one guy who's kind of now maskless in the shower room, and then we end up seeing Violet, who is getting burnt alive. And so, like, we confirmed that there were 4 masked individuals, because I was like, well, is there only, like, 3 of them altogether? And then I was like, oh, I guess there's 4, because, like, I didn't know. Or I was kind of assuming, wait a minute, like, did the one character get killed, or is he still alive? But no, he's dead. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. Because they had to help me. Because, yeah, like, I don't think they really set it up right away or fairly easily that there was, like, 4 guys. So, like, I wasn't sure. That was, like, the one thing that I think, like, that, like, the Strangers, like, set up really well, was that there was only 3 of them, and they all looked individually different. But with that said, I think I'm just going to go on and get out here. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about Kristy, whether you liked this film, whether you thought that it was boring, or whether you're just like, you know what, like I didn't think I was going to get into this movie, but I just thought, yeah, like, there was something about it that I just ended up liking. My main reason for really, in all honesty, doing this movie is because it had the words Thanksgiving in it. And so I was like, okay, like, good enough for me, because I'm considering it's November. I want to start banging out certain Thanksgiving movies, but not traditional ones. Like, everybody's together at a family table, and, like, that's every single one of the Thanksgiving movies. No. If anything, I want to try to do, like, some comedy stuff, but then also some obvious Thanksgiving movies. But Kristy was kind of one of those where it's like, okay, it states Thanksgiving, but it's not the whole focus. So with that said, bye everybody. Bye everybody.